We all know physics is pretty overwhelming. There's going to be a lot of different equations and a bunch of different symbols and black holes and stuff we just don't even understand, right? This makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing. I think that pretty much all topics have this issue. And so I've come up with some good strategies to try to fix this. And basically, we've got this problem. So physics is overwhelming. And here's the challenge. So there's too many topics. There's not enough time to cover everything, right? It's basically like a collection of unrelated facts and nothing really united, and you kind of just get lost in so much information. And it's hard to remember all the equations and all the vocab stuff and everything that you just have to learn. And if you're missing foundational skills like some of the math and stuff, well, it's going to be hard to keep up with everything. So, what are we supposed to do about this? What's the solution? Well, one thing that we should do is try to list all the topics that are going to be in the category in physics, right? You can choose a specific topic in physics if you want, but let's use some available resources or AI so we can sort of cut through, the times. We don't have to. We may not even know all the topics, right? So let's ask the robot and see what he knows about physics, right? I was like, ask the robot. Let's list all the topics. We got classical physics, we got quantum physics, condensed matter, relativity, high energy physics, statistical mechanics. Well, for right now, I'm just going to focus on classical physics. We could just understand the basics, right? And we kind of have all this stuff right here. So, what are we supposed to do now? Okay. Well, now what we want to do is we want to group related topics and draw a map. Okay. So, let's go back to the list of topics here. We have all of this stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this. I'm going to transfer this onto a map. So I've done that over here. It's a bit difficult to navigate this stuff. But essentially, I prepared it right here. I've copied all those topics down into this sort of little map. And now I've grouped them all sort of in related sections. So we kind of see mechanics might be over here, electromagnetism is over here, thermodynamics might be down here, optics is over here. Now, this is just a tentative sort of outline. I don't really know exactly where this is going to go from here, but at least this gives me sort of a framework to work with. Okay. And so now what's the next step? So we've sort of drawn a little map. Well, now let's try to do some visualization. Let's draw some diagrams. Or let's label some variables, and if necessary to memorize stuff, you might need to use some flashcards. But let's focus on these things. Okay, so let's go back to our map. So now I'm going to just go in real close to just Newton's laws right here. Okay, and I'll make a little section that's next to it, and I'll say, okay, I'll write out the equation in real words instead of like just symbols, so it makes more sense. If I know the symbols, basic stuff, maybe not. So I'll write like force equals mass times acceleration, and then I'll write the units. So newtons equals kilograms times meters per second squared. So now I have a little bit more of a more intuitive understanding, more physical understanding of these units and this. And then we're going to look at the image here. We're going to draw a little diagram. I want to make it sort of proportionate too. But the idea is that, I'm going to label this with colors. So we got F right here is the force. We can see that. It's an arrow. We have this mass right here, which is labeled M, and I've color coded that with the gray. And then we just have constant acceleration A, as you can see here, it's acceleration. So now all this stuff sort of connects together, and we really understand one of the forces, one of the Newton's laws, and it's kind of the general idea of force. And so this is how we can sort of really get an intuitive understanding of this one concept and have it be related to all the other stuff on the same type of page here. And you can start to sort of rearrange this. It's just a concept now. A lot of people sort of use this strategy. Okay, so we've done this, and if that's not really good enough, you could also use flashcards to try to remember some of these things as well. All right, and now what? Well, if you're missing some of these foundational skills or so, and you want to gain a sort of a step ahead, what you can do is actually just get a solution guidebook, okay, and then look for patterns as you're reading through the solutions. Okay, so I've actually really got a nice page right here. You can go to tinyurl.com/physics199, and that'll bring you over here to the OpenStax college student manual here. This is from OpenStax. Okay, now this page over here has it up. That's kind of cool. Thank you for that. But the idea here, this is from OpenStax, is kind of the official student guide, and you can go through here. It's got a whole bunch of different topics. Okay, and we're just going to go through some of the basic things. So we'll go over here to like kinematics or something, and we'll look at these solutions, and we'll be like, we don't even have to read anything. Okay, who cares? This stuff doesn't matter. What matters is this equation right here. You ask yourself, do you understand this equation? That velocity is displacement over time. You might have seen that before. Here's how you can use it. You plug in the variables. You plug in the given values. And then you notice that there's a pattern if you go to the next one. Wait a minute. It's the same thing. You just plug in given values. You just plug in given values. You use the equation for the particular topic. So when we need the average velocity equation. Okay, so let's get the equation for average velocity. It should be on your note sheet. And then you can plug in the given variables. Okay, and then you start noticing that that's kind of a pattern. Okay, you just plug in the variables, plug in the variables. Okay, does it get any harder than that? Well, maybe plug that answer into another equation and maybe repeat that a few times. So you need to sort of do a chain of equations, 1, 2, and 3, kind of something like this, where you might get an answer, and then plug it into like the next one or something. So you have like a chain of equations where you have to sort of solve for time or whatever, and then plug it into x, right, to be able to get that, and then plug it into A or something to be able to get that. So you have a chain of equations. Okay, what else could you possibly do? Well, does this equation look familiar? So if you don't have the equations that are familiar to you, you want to write them down into your sheet. So you have this equation, you have this equation. You want to make sure that these are both written in your sheet. And you just kind of scroll through this. You see, we're not even reading the solutions or even the questions. We're just looking to see if this information that they're sort of these equations and the solutions make sense. Whether we recognize the equation, we have it written on our sheet, and the patterns of how they're actually solving. Because notice how these ones we have to like understand velocity versus time graphs. So maybe you just kind of have to understand this type of graph. Okay, so these are the types of things you would get from like skimming through solutions. Okay, and like what the heck does it mean to have a bold term? I believe that would be a vector, right? So, um, so anyway, this is some different things that we can get just out of skimming through the solution guides. We don't really want to read them or try to cheat or anything, but just like skim through the book and see what the patterns are. All right. Um, so here's the cool thing. Once you kind of get all this stuff done, you basically get a nice little understanding. You build sort of this tensor network in your brain, connection between all the different topics. You can do this for math, programming, chemistry, physics, engineering, all this good stuff. The best part is I've actually done all the hard work for you. Okay, so here's the thing. It's really hard to do this. What you guys can do, so I've done all the work for you. Basically, just go to physicsformulasheet.com and you get the free download. It's a complete guide, physics, mechanical physics. You're going to save a lot of time. It's an efficient review, and it's going to build some confidence. It's going to be like this portable little map that you can take around. And this is how you can keep yourself organized and prevent overwhelm in physics. So thank you all for watching. You all have a happy New Year and happy holidays.